The grand assembly hall floated in the darkness of space, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of a distant neutron star. Inside the massive structure, representatives from 27 alien species gathered around a circular platform. The air hummed with translated voices, each species speaking in their own language while devices converted the words into something others could understand. Ambassador Jiwoo Park stood alone in the center of the platform. He wore a simple black suit, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, creatures of impossible shapes watched with eyes that glowed, blinked, or stared without moving. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. Jiwoo had trained for this moment for 3 years, but nothing could truly prepare a human for standing before the powers that ruled the galaxy. High Arbiter Velmath rose from his seat. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with a body that resembled a praying mantis covered in dark blue armor, his 4 eyes fixed on Jiwoo with something that looked like disgust. When he spoke, his voice came out as clicks and hisses, but the translator made it sound cold and sharp. "The human stands before us to answer for the crimes of his species," Velmath announced. "Earth has broadcast its presence into our galaxy for 200 of their years. We have observed them, we have studied them, and we have found them wanting." Jiwoo kept his face neutral. Dr. Suho Lee had warned him about this. The aliens would try to intimidate him, to make him feel small. He took a slow breath and waited. Velmath gestured, and holographic images appeared above the platform. They showed Earth from space, beautiful and blue. Then the images changed. Cities burning, mushroom clouds rising, forests cut down, oceans filled with plastic, wars that stretched across continents. "This species has divided itself into hundreds of factions," Velmath continued. "They poison their own world. They create weapons capable of destroying themselves. They have not achieved peace even among their own kind, and now they reach into space, bringing their violence with them." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish pulsed with orange light. "They are dangerous," it said in a voice like wind chimes. "We have seen species like this before. They spread like disease." Another alien, this one resembling a bear made of living rock, nodded its massive head. "The Terrans must be contained before they threaten the civilized galaxy." Jiwoo finally spoke. His voice was steady, carrying across the chamber despite having no amplification. "We came here to talk, to learn, to join the galactic community. Is this how you welcome new species? With accusations and judgment?" Velmath's mandibles clicked together in what might have been laughter. "Welcome? You misunderstand your position, human. The Galactic Council does not welcome predators. We neutralize them." "Predators?" Jiwoo's calm cracked slightly. "We've done nothing to any of you. We've only just reached beyond our own moon with any real presence. We've built stations, yes. We've established small colonies. But we've harmed no one out here." "Not yet," Velmath said. "But you will. It is in your nature. We have watched you fight among yourselves for resources, for land, for ideas. You will do the same to us when you grow strong enough. The Council has decided that this cannot be allowed." "Decided?" Jiwoo looked around the chamber. "Without talking to us first? Without giving us a chance?" A slim alien with silver skin and too many joints in its arms stood up. "The human speaks as if he has rights here. He has none. Earth is not part of the Galactic Council. Earth has no protection under our laws. Earth is simply a problem that needs solving." Velmath raised one of his blade-like arms. "The vote has already been taken. 27 species, 27 votes in favor. Humanity will be quarantined. A blockade will be established around your solar system. You will not be allowed to expand further. You will remain on your world and your small colonies until such time as you prove yourselves worthy of joining civilized space, if ever." "And if we refuse?" Jiwoo asked quietly. "Then you will be removed," Velmath said simply. "We are being merciful, human. Other councils would have simply destroyed your world and been done with it. Be grateful we are offering you life, even if it is life in a cage." Jiwoo wanted to argue more, to make them see reason, but he could read the room. These beings had already made up their minds. They saw humans as nothing more than violent children playing with matches. No words he said here would change that. "When?" he asked. "The fleet is already moving," Velmath said. 300 ships from 12 species. They will arrive at the edge of your solar system in 6 of your days. Any human vessels outside the orbit of your outermost planet will be destroyed. Any attempt to break the blockade will be met with overwhelming force. Your expansion ends now. The chamber fell silent. Jiwoo stood there, feeling the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. Back on Earth, people were living their normal lives, not knowing that the galaxy had just declared them prisoners in their own home. This is wrong, Jiwoo said. And you'll regret it. Velmath's mandibles clicked again.
Threats?
From a species that has barely learned to leave its own gravity well. Return to your world, human. Tell your leaders to accept their fate with dignity. It is more than many species receive. The platform beneath Jiwoo's feet began to glow, and he felt the familiar sensation of a transport beam. The last thing he saw before the assembly hall disappeared was Velmath's cold alien eyes staring down at him with absolute certainty. Jiwoo materialized on his ship, a small diplomatic vessel that looked like a child's toy compared to the alien structures around it. His pilot, Captain Hana Choi, was already at the controls. How bad? She asked. As bad as it gets, Jiwoo replied. Get us home, fast, we need to warn them. As the ship turned toward Earth, Jiwoo looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was coming to cage humanity. But what these aliens didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that humans had been preparing for this possibility since the first radio signals went unanswered. General Minho Kim had been building a fleet in secret, hidden in the shadows of Jupiter's moons and scattered through the asteroid belt. It wasn't much compared to what was coming, but it would have to be enough. Because if there was one thing humans understood, it was how to fight when cornered. The mining station on Ceres had been home to 237 people. Now it was debris. Captain Yuna Song watched the wreckage drift past her viewport, her stealth ship hidden in the shadow of a large asteroid. Pieces of metal still glowed red from the heat of the explosion. She could see a child's toy floating among the ruins, a stuffed animal that had somehow survived when its owner had not. 3 more stations destroyed. Her navigator reported quietly. Europa Colony 7, Ganymede Station, and the research post on Callisto. No survivors from any of them. Yuna's hands tightened on the armrests of her command chair. Did they give any warnings? Any chance to evacuate? No, Captain. The alien ships just opened fire. Some of the stations tried to surrender. It didn't matter. Back on Earth, Admiral Taeyang Shin sat in the United Defense Command Center deep beneath the surface. Screens surrounded him, showing the positions of every human vessel and every alien ship in the solar system. The alien blockade had formed a loose ring around the asteroid belt, 300 warships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. A young officer approached him. Sir, we're receiving reports from Mars Colony. The aliens are demanding they shut down all defenses and surrender their communications equipment. They're giving them 1 hour. Taeyang's jaw clenched. Mars Colony housed 15,000 people. Families, children, scientists who had dedicated their lives to making the Red Planet habitable. What does Geneva say? The World Council is still debating whether to comply or resist. Half of them want to surrender. They say we can't win against this kind of force. And the other half? The officer hesitated. They're saying we should fight. That surrender now means we'll be at their mercy forever. Taeyang looked at the screens. He had been a soldier for 40 years. He had commanded fleets in the resource wars, had seen the worst that humans could do to each other. But this was different. This wasn't humans fighting over water or minerals. This was survival of the entire species. Get me General Minho, he said. Minho Kim stood on the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, humanity's largest warship. It had been built in secret over the past 15 years, assembled from pieces manufactured across the solar system. The aliens probably knew about some of Earth's military buildup, but they didn't know about everything. They didn't know about the stealth ships, the drone swarms, or the weapons that humanity had developed specifically for a war in space. When Taeyang's face appeared on his screen, Minho already knew what the Admiral was going to say. They're killing civilians, Taeyang said without preamble. 4 stations gone. Maybe 600 dead. And they're threatening Mars. Minho nodded slowly. The World Council? Paralyzed. Half want to fight, half want to surrender. They'll debate until there's no one left to save. Then we don't wait for them to decide, Minho said. We have authorization to defend human colonies, don't we? Technically, yes. But this could start a war we can't win. They already started the war, Admiral. They fired the first shots. They killed our people without provocation, without mercy. If we surrender now, we're just teaching them that they can do whatever they want to us. Taeyang was quiet for a moment. You really think we can hurt them? I think we can make them bleed, Minho replied. And I think that's better than dying on our knees. Jiho Kang sat in the cockpit of his fighter, going through pre-flight checks for the third time. He was young, only 23, and this was supposed to be his first real assignment after graduating from the academy. He had imagined escorting cargo ships or patrolling near Earth. He had not imagined going to war against aliens who had weapons that could cut through his ship like paper. His sister had been on Ganymede Station. She was a botanist working on ways to grow food in low gravity. She was brilliant, funny, and had promised to come home for their mother's birthday next month. Now she was gone, killed by aliens who didn't even know her name. Jiho's hands moved over the controls automatically. He had memorized every switch, every button, every emergency procedure. His fighter was small, fast, and armed with missiles that might scratch the paint on an alien warship if he was lucky. But it was what he had, and he would use it. All pilots, this is Commander Deho, a voice came through his helmet. We've received orders. We're launching in 10 minutes. Our mission is to cover the evacuation of Mars colony and engage any alien forces that try to stop us. Jiho's heart pounded. Around him, in the hangar bay of the carrier Defiant, 50 other fighters were powering up. It wasn't many. The aliens had thousands of fighters, but humans had never let bad odds stop them before. Back on Earth, in a laboratory beneath the mountains of Norway, Dr. Yoonji Han watched her life's work being loaded onto transport ships. The plasma lance, a weapon that could theoretically punch through alien shields, had never been tested in actual combat. The math said it would work. The simulations said it would work. But reality had a way of proving theories wrong. Will it be enough? Her assistant asked. Yoonji didn't answer right away. She was thinking about all the things that could go wrong. The weapon might overheat. The plasma might disperse too quickly. The aliens might have countermeasures they hadn't anticipated. It has to be, she finally said. On Mars, families huddled in underground shelters as the evacuation began. Transport ships landed one after another, taking as many people as they could carry. Children cried. Parents held them close. Everyone knew they were running out of time. Above the planet, alien warships moved into position. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls smooth and dark, their weapons glowing with energy that could turn a city to ash. The commander of the alien fleet, a being whose name translated roughly to Skybreaker, studied the human colony with interest. They are evacuating, his second officer reported. Let them, Skybreaker said. It changes nothing. When they are gone, we will destroy the colony as an example. Let the humans see what happens when they resist. But Skybreaker didn't know that in the shadow of Mars's moon Phobos, General Minho's fleet was waiting. 47 warships, 120 fighters, 6,000 men and women who had just watched their friends and families die. Minho stood on his bridge, watching the alien fleet position itself. They were confident, arrogant even. They had never fought humans before. They thought this would be easy. All ships, this is General Minho, he said into the fleet-wide channel. The aliens came to our home. They killed our people. They threatened our families. Now we're going to show them that humanity doesn't roll over. We don't surrender, we fight. For Earth, for the colonies, for everyone we've lost. He paused, then added quietly, and for everyone we're going to save. All ships, attack position. Let's bring them hell. The human fleet emerged from behind Phobos, weapons hot, engines burning bright against the darkness of space. The aliens had seconds to react before the first missiles crossed the void between them. The first missile struck an alien destroyer before its shields could fully activate. The explosion lit up the darkness like a newborn star. And for a moment, every human in the fleet held their breath. They had hurt them. They could actually hurt them. Skybreaker watched his display in disbelief as more human missiles swarmed toward his fleet. Where did they come from? Where did they get these ships? Unknown, Commander, his tactical officer replied, voice tight with stress. They were hidden. We didn't detect them. Then detect them now and destroy them. The alien fleet broke formation, their massive ships turning with surprising grace. Energy weapons began firing, brilliant beams of light that cut through space. A human frigate took a direct hit and split apart, its crew dead before they knew what happened. Another ship tried to evade but moved too slowly. The beam caught it mid-turn and vaporized its entire aft section. Minho watched his people die and felt each loss like a physical blow. But he couldn't stop. Couldn't hesitate. All ships execute pattern Delta, spread out. Make them choose their targets. and keep those transports covered. Below them on Mars, the evacuation continued. Transport ships lifted off one after another, their cargo bays packed with refugees. Every minute the fleet bought them meant hundreds more lives saved. Captain Hana Choi commanded the destroyer Defiant, leading a group of smaller ships in a flanking maneuver. She had served in the Navy for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. The alien ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields able to absorb damage that would obliterate a human vessel. But aliens, she was learning, could die. "Target that cruiser," she ordered. "All forward batteries fire on my mark." 3, 2, 1 mark. The Defiant shuddered as its railguns fired, sending tungsten slugs downrange at a fraction of the speed of light. The alien cruiser's shields flared, holding against the first impacts. But the Defiant wasn't alone. 3 other human ships fired simultaneously, and under the concentrated barrage the shields collapsed. The railgun slugs tore through the cruiser's hull and atmosphere vented into space in glittering streams. "Hit," her weapons officer shouted, but their victory was short-lived. 2 alien fighters dove on them, their weapons tearing through the Defiant's armor. Alarms screamed. Hull breaches in sections 4 through 7, life support failing, engine power dropping. "Hana," her first officer said quietly, "we're not going to make it." She looked at her crew, at these people who had trusted her to lead them. Then she looked at the alien carrier ahead, the massive ship that was launching fighter after fighter to attack the transports. "No," she said, "we're not, but we're going to take that carrier with us. Helm, set collision course. Everyone else get to the escape pods." "That's an order, Captain." "Now!" Her crew scrambled to obey. Hana stayed at her station, watching the carrier grow larger in her view screen. The aliens noticed her approach too late. They fired, hitting the Defiant again and again, but momentum was on her side. The ship was already a wreck. A little more damage didn't matter. The Defiant struck the carrier's launch bay at full speed. The explosion was massive, tearing through both ships. The carrier listed fires burning across its hull, its launch operations crippled. Captain Hana Choi died instantly, but her sacrifice bought the transport's precious time. Jiho Kang flew through the chaos, his fighter weaving between explosions and weapons fire. His squadron had been 12 ships. Now they were 5. But they had destroyed at least 20 alien fighters using tactics no military academy taught. They hid in debris fields and ambushed pursuers. They fired missiles and then dove toward asteroids, letting the aliens follow them into fields of rock where superior speed meant nothing. They fought dirty, fought desperate, fought like humans had fought since the first wars in Earth's ancient history. "Jiho, 3 on your 6, his wingman called. He jinked left, then rolled, the alien fighters overshooting. They were faster, but he was smaller and could turn sharper. He looped back and got behind one of them, firing his remaining missiles at point-blank range. The alien fighter exploded, and he flew through the debris, feeling his ship shake from the impacts. But there were too many of them. For every alien fighter they destroyed, 2 more appeared. For every alien ship they damaged, 3 more were still firing. The human fleet was bleeding, dying, and everyone knew it. "All ships, this is Admiral Taiyang." The voice came through every comms channel. "The last transport is away from Mars. The evacuation is complete. All fleet units begin withdrawal to Rally Point Theta. We've done what we came to do." But Minho wasn't done. "Not yet, Dr. Yunji," he said into a private channel. "Is the lance ready?" From the weapons bay of Terra's Wrath, Yunji Han's voice came through. "As ready as it's going to be, General. But sir, we've only got 1 shot. If it doesn't work, then we die like we were going to die anyway," Minho interrupted. "Lock onto their flagship. Fire when ready." The plasma lance had been built in secret, assembled from theories and stolen alien data and pure human stubbornness. It was a weapon that focused plasma into a beam so concentrated, so hot, that it should punch through any known shielding. Should being the key word. The weapon powered up, drawing energy from Terra's Wrath's reactor until the entire ship dimmed. On alien sensors, the human flagship suddenly blazed like a star being born. Skybreaker saw the energy build up and knew somehow that it was aimed at him. Evasive action. All power to forward shields. The plasma lance fired. The beam crossed the distance between ships in less than a second. It hit Skybreaker's flagship dead center, and the alien shields held for almost 3 full seconds before they failed. The plasma burned through the hull, through decks and corridors and crew compartments, through the reactor, through everything. Skybreaker's last thought was that the humans had been underestimated. The flagship exploded, a detonation so massive that it damaged ships around it. The alien fleet, suddenly leaderless, faltered. Their formations broke. Ships began to retreat, their commanders uncertain and afraid. Minho watched them run and felt no satisfaction. He had won the battle, but at such a cost. 2/3 of his fleet was gone, thousands dead, and this was only one alien fleet out of hundreds in the galaxy. But they had shown that humans could fight. That humanity wouldn't simply accept subjugation, and perhaps most importantly, they had broadcast everything. Dr. Suho Lee, from his position on Earth, had ensured that every moment of the battle was transmitted on every frequency humanity knew how to use. The aliens had tried to jam it, but human hackers had been ready. The entire galaxy would see what happened when you attacked humanity's home. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving messages from several alien species. Some are condemning us, but others are asking questions about why the Council attacked us, about what really happened." Minho nodded slowly. "And what about the Council itself?" "They're convening an emergency session. They're demanding we stand down and face judgment for destroying their fleet." "Tell them we're coming," Minho said, "and we're bringing our evidence of their crimes. Let them try to explain why they murdered civilians without provocation." As the battered human fleet regrouped and began the long journey to the Council station, Minho looked out at the stars. They had survived the first battle, but the war was far from over. Still, for the first time, the galaxy knew that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. They would fight. They would resist. And they would make their enemies pay for every inch of space they tried to take. The Galactic Council station appeared on the view screen like a jewel floating in the void. Its crystalline structure reflected starlight, beautiful and cold. But this time, when the human fleet approached, they did not come as supplicants. They came with weapons armed and shields raised. Minho stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, the flagship bearing scars from the battle at Mars. Burns marked its hull. Sections were still exposed to vacuum where repairs hadn't been completed, but the ship's weapons worked perfectly, and that was all that mattered. "Sir, the Council is demanding we withdraw immediately," the communications officer reported. "They say we're violating their space." "Tell them we'll withdraw after they answer for what they did," Minho replied. "And tell them that every word of this conversation is being broadcast to the entire galaxy. They can jam it if they want, but that will just make them look guilty." Aboard the Council station, panic was spreading. High Arbiter Velmath stood in the central chamber, his 4 eyes scanning the reports flooding in. The humans had destroyed a significant portion of the blockade fleet. They had killed thousands of trained soldiers, and worse, they had done it on camera for everyone to see. "This is intolerable," Velmath hissed. "They attack our forces and then dare to come here demanding answers? We should destroy them where they sit." But Councillor Rathnell, a being that resembled a silver serpent with 6 arms, shook his head. "And prove their accusations right. Half the galaxy is already asking questions, Velmath. Questions about why we attacked first. Questions about the civilian casualties. If we fire on them now, we'll have a civil war on our hands. They're humans," Velmath spat. "Primitives. We don't owe them explanations. The law says otherwise," another counselor interjected. This one looked like walking crystal, its voice chiming like bells. "The Charter of Civilized Species clearly states that first contact must be peaceful, unless an immediate threat is present." Where was the immediate threat? "Their entire history is a threat," Velmath argued. "We have footage of their wars, their weapons. Footage that every species could provide about their own past," Rathnell interrupted. "We've all had dark periods. That doesn't justify preemptive extermination." In the human fleet, diplomat Minji Bay prepared her case. She was a lawyer by training, specializing in international war crimes. Now she would apply those skills on a galactic scale. She reviewed the evidence one more time. Sensor logs showing civilian stations being destroyed without warning. Communications where humans begged for mercy and were ignored. Even recovered data from destroyed alien ships showing their orders explicitly targeted non-military facilities. "Are you ready?" Minho asked her. Minji looked up from her tablet. "As ready as I can be. But General, these aren't human courts. They don't follow our rules. There's no guarantee they'll even listen. Then we make them listen," Minho said, "one way or another." He opened a channel to the Council station. This is General Minho Kim of Earth. We request immediate audience with the Galactic Council to address their unprovoked attack on human civilians. If our request is denied, we will remain in orbit until it is granted. We are not leaving until we have answers. Velmath received the transmission and felt his mandibles click with rage. The audacity of these creatures. But around him, other counselors were nodding. They wanted answers too, some because they genuinely believed justice should be served, others because they feared what would happen if the truth came out without their spin on it. Very well, Velmath said finally. Send one representative, unarmed, alone. No. Minho's voice came back immediately. I'm coming and I'm bringing my evidence, and I'm keeping my sidearm. You want to arrest me for it, you're welcome to try. The council chamber erupted in outraged chittering and howling, but Rathanel held up one of his 6 hands. Let him come. What's one human pistol against the station's security? And if we fear one armed human so much, what does that say about us? 30 minutes later, Minho materialized on the transport platform in the council chamber. He wore his dress uniform, the one reserved for formal occasions. It was clean, pressed, but his face told the story his clothes didn't. He was exhausted, grieving, and absolutely done with alien superiority. Ambassador Jiwoo was already there, having arrived earlier through diplomatic channels. Dr. Suho stood beside him, carrying the data cores with all their evidence, and Minji was there too, ready to present the case. The council sat in their elevated seats looking down at the humans. Velmath stood at the center, his posture radiating disdain. You dare to come here after attacking council ships? He began. We defended ourselves. Minho interrupted, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. You attacked our colonies first. You killed our civilians. You gave them no warning, no chance to surrender, nothing. You just murdered them. We were enforcing a quarantine. You were committing genocide, Minho shouted, and his voice echoed in the vast chamber. You decided we were dangerous and moved to eliminate us without trial, without evidence, without mercy. And now you stand there pretending to be the victims? Minji stepped forward, activating the holographic projector. Images appeared above the council chamber. Ceres mining station full of families vaporized in seconds. Europa colony broadcasting a surrender signal that was ignored. Children's faces frozen in the moment before they died. These are your victims, Minji said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. 237 at Ceres, 412 at Europa, 190 at Ganymede. By galactic law, attacking non-military targets is a war crime. By any moral standard, killing children is murder. Which law would you like to be judged under? Velmath's mandibles clicked rapidly. They were collateral damage and a necessary action. Collateral damage? Minho's hand moved to his sidearm, not drawing it, just resting there. The gesture made half the council flinch. Is that what you'll say when I start shooting? That you were collateral damage? You threaten us in our own chamber? Velmath hissed. No, Minho said, removing his hand from the weapon. I'm showing you how it feels to be threatened with death for no reason. Uncomfortable, isn't it? Dr. Suho activated another file. This time, it showed intercepted communications between Velmath and his fleet commanders. The humans had cracked some of the alien encryption during the battle, enough to capture key messages. Your orders were clear, Arbiter, Suho said. Destroy human infrastructure. Make them submit through fear. And here's the interesting part. These orders were sent before the blockade even reached our system. You decided to kill us before you even talked to us. The chamber went silent. Other counselors stared at Velmath, waiting for his explanation. I acted for the good of the galaxy, Velmath said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Humans are dangerous. Any species can see that. Every species is dangerous, Rathanel said quietly. The Velrothi have destroyed 3 species in your rise to power. The Krell Wars killed billions. Even my own people exterminated our planet's other intelligent species before we reached space. We're all dangerous, Velmath. That's not an excuse for mass murder. The human recordings have been broadcast across the galaxy, another counselor added. Public opinion is turning against us. Half our member species are demanding an investigation. Some are threatening to leave the council entirely if we don't address this. Minho watched Velmath squirm and felt a grim satisfaction, not because he enjoyed the aliens' discomfort, but because for the first time the arrogant bastard was facing consequences. Here's what's going to happen, Minho said, his voice firm. The Galactic Council will formally apologize to humanity. You will pay reparations for every life lost. Every station destroyed. You will recognize Earth's right to exist and expand freely, and High Arbiter Velmath will face trial for war crimes. Impossible, Velmath shouted.
I am the High Arbiter.
You cannot. You invaded our home, Minho said, and his voice was quiet now. Deadly quiet. You killed our people. You tried to cage us like animals. And when we fought back, we won. Now you'll face justice, or I swear by everything humans hold sacred. We'll come back with everything we have and burn your empire to ash. Try me. The council chamber fell into complete silence. Not a single alien spoke. They stared at this human general, this warrior from a species they had dismissed as primitive, and they saw something in his eyes that terrified them. They saw a human who would keep his promise. 6 months after the battle at Mars, the galaxy looked different. The Galactic Council had fractured. 7 species withdrew their membership within the first week, citing the Council's violation of its own laws. 3 more followed within a month. The Council, which had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, suddenly found itself struggling to maintain authority. High Arbiter Velmath stood trial. Not in the council chamber, but in a neutral court established by species who demanded justice. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy, watched by trillions. For the first time, a council leader was held accountable for his actions. Minho attended the trial only once, on the day Velmath was sentenced. The former arbiter was stripped of his rank, his wealth, and his freedom. He would spend the rest of his long life in confinement, thinking about the humans he had underestimated. Do you feel justice has been served? A reporter asked Minho as he left the courtroom. Minho thought about Captain Hana, who died ramming her ship into a carrier. About the children on Ceres who never had a chance. About the thousands of lives lost because one alien decided humanity wasn't worth talking to. No, he said honestly, nothing brings them back. But at least others will think twice before doing the same thing. Back on Earth, the world had changed too. The attack and subsequent victory had done something no human government had ever managed. It united the species. Old rivalries didn't disappear, but they seemed smaller now. When you faced extinction as a species, arguments over borders and resources lose their urgency. Admiral Taeyang Shin oversaw the reconstruction of the fleet. The ships lost at Mars were replaced with new vessels, better designs incorporating lessons learned in battle. But more importantly, several alien species offered to share technology with humanity, not out of kindness but out of respect. They see us differently now, Taeyang explained to a meeting of Earth's leaders. Before we were primitives, curious, maybe dangerous, but ultimately beneath notice. Now they know we'll fight, that we can win. Fear commands more respect than diplomacy ever did. Captain Yuna Song, promoted to admiral after her stealth reconnaissance work, led the new fleet being constructed in orbit around Jupiter. She had watched her comrades die in the battle, had seen human courage and determination overcome impossible odds. Now she trained the next generation of officers, making sure they understood both how to fight and why fighting should always be the last option. The aliens taught us something important, she told her cadets during their first briefing. They taught us that the galaxy doesn't care about being fair. It doesn't reward the peaceful or the cautious, but it does respect strength. Our job is to be strong enough that no one dares attack us, but wise enough not to become the monsters we fought against. Jiho Kang became something of a legend among fighter pilots. He had survived the battle with only 47 other pilots out of over 300. His tactics, learned through desperation and necessity, were now taught at every military academy. He gave lectures sometimes, but mostly he just flew. Flying helped him forget the faces of the people he couldn't save. Dr. Yoonji Han's plasma lance became the basis for a whole new generation of weapons. Other scientists built on her work, creating defenses that could stand against the galaxy's most advanced species. She won awards, received honors. But what mattered most to her was the message from a Mars colonist, thanking her for making it possible to save his family. Ambassador, Jiwoo worked tirelessly to establish embassies with the alien species willing to talk. Humanity still refused to join the Galactic Council, not after what had happened. But they built relationships one species at a time, creating alliances based on mutual interest rather than submission. Dr. Suho Lee became humanity's foremost expert on alien cultures. His broadcast during the battle showing the truth of the Council's actions had made him famous across the galaxy. He used that fame to build bridges, teaching humans about aliens and aliens about humans. Understanding, he believed, was the best defense against future conflicts. Minji Bay established the first interspecies court, a place where grievances could be addressed without warfare. It was slow work, convincing both humans and aliens that justice could exist across species boundaries. But every case she won, every dispute she resolved peacefully proved it was possible. On Mars, a memorial was built where the battle had raged. It listed every name of every person killed in the alien attack. Human names carved in stone that would last 1,000,000 years. Families came to visit, to remember, to mourn, and young people came too, to see what their parents and grandparents had fought for. 1 year after the battle, General Minho Kim retired. He had spent 45 years in service, the last year being the hardest. He had led humanity through its darkest moment and brought them through to the other side. Now he was tired, ready to rest, but the galaxy wouldn't let him fade away quietly. His speech to the council, his declaration, "You invaded our home," had become legendary. It was quoted in alien parliaments, studied in military academies, and used as a rallying cry by oppressed species across the galaxy. The Teldari, a species that had been subjugated by the council for centuries, rose in rebellion. They cited the human example, showing that even the council's might could be resisted. They won their independence after a 3-month conflict, and their first act as a free species was to request an embassy with Earth. The Karathi, insectoids from the far rim, defied council edicts and began expanding their territory. When the council sent ships to enforce compliance, the Karathi fought back. They lost badly, but the message was sent. The council's authority was no longer absolute. 3 new species made contact with humanity, bypassing the council entirely. They had watched the battle, seen humanity's courage, and decided they wanted to learn from these strange bipeds who refused to submit. Minho watched all this from his home in the mountains of Korea. He had a small house, a garden, and a view of the stars. Sometimes he wondered if the violence had been necessary, if there had been another way. But then he remembered Velmath's arrogance, the council's casual cruelty, and he knew the truth. Bullies understand only one language: force. On a cool autumn evening, Minho received an unexpected visitor. A young alien, barely adult by their species' standards, appeared at his door. They were small, furred, with large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. "General Kim," the alien said in halting but understandable English, "I am Kelry of the Pavi people. My people were slaves until 6 months ago. We saw your battle, we heard your words, and we decided that we too deserve to be free. I came to say thank you." Minho invited the young alien inside, made tea, and they talked for hours. Kelry told stories of the Pavi rebellion, of how they had overthrown their oppressors. The stories were bloody, tragic, and ultimately triumphant. They had paid a terrible price for freedom, but they had won it. "Some of our elders say we should not have fought," Kelry said. "They say many died who would have lived if we had remained patient. What do you think?" Minho was quiet for a long moment, watching steam rise from his tea. "I think freedom is never free," he said finally. "Someone always pays the price. The question isn't whether fighting is hard, but whether living without freedom is harder. Only you can answer that for your people." Kelry nodded slowly. "The humans answered for themselves at Mars." "Yes," Minho said, "and we'll keep answering as many times as necessary." After Kelry left, Minho stood in his garden and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Captain Yuna's fleet patrolled the solar system. Somewhere, Ambassador Jiwoo was negotiating treaties. Somewhere, young pilots like Jiho were training for battles they hoped would never come. The galaxy had learned that humanity would defend itself, that they would not be caged, controlled, or exterminated without a fight. It wasn't the reputation Minho would have chosen. He would have preferred that first contact had gone peacefully, that diplomacy had worked, but the universe didn't care about preferences. It cared about results, and the result was clear. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not through permission or invitation, but through blood and sacrifice and sheer stubborn refusal to die quietly. The council had gone silent that day, shocked into speechlessness by a general's declaration, but the silence hadn't lasted. In the months since, the galaxy had erupted into conversation about justice, about power, about the rights of species to exist without permission from those who thought themselves superior. Humanity had started something it couldn't control, a movement, an idea, the understanding that might didn't make right, and that those who had nothing left to lose were the most dangerous enemies of all. Minho smiled slightly, a tired smile that held both sorrow and satisfaction. They had paid a terrible price, lost thousands of lives, scarred a generation, but they had survived, and in surviving they had changed the galaxy forever. The stars shone bright above him, full of possibilities and dangers in equal measure. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities. But tonight Minho could rest, knowing that humanity had answered the oldest question in history. When pushed to the edge, would they surrender, or would they fight? Earth had roared its answer, and the galaxy would never forget.